Alright, you guys already know it's about that time again. We got early access to Orphie, which means we have a lot to discuss about this upcoming character for Zenless Zone Zero. With my early access, I was able to learn a lot about this character, so within this video, we're going to be talking about how to play Orphie. We'll also provide you guys my overall opinion on her game plan and her overall kit. I'm going to provide you guys the details that you need on how to build her with disk drives and W engine options, as well as we'll be going over her team options that I think are pretty practical to be using and are pretty strong. And then finally, we're going to be ending off the video talking about the character's overall pull value and if she'll be worth your polychromes. So I don't want to hold you guys up any longer. There's a lot to talk about this highly anticipated character in this video. So without further ado, let's get and talk about how to play Orphie. Orphie Magus is our first off-field fire attack unit that specializes in dealing damage through aftershocks while granting insane buffs to their teammates. She's our first sub DPS in the game that's able to perform both her special attack Corrosive Flash and her EX special Crimson Vortex while she's off-field, dealing substantial fire damage. Her special attack is the primary move that you're going to be seeing her use while she's off-field, as this move requires no resources to be performed and triggers every 5 seconds while restoring 20 bottle heat, which is a very important resource that you need to keep up with. If she has enough energy greater than or equal to 60 though, she'll automatically consume 30 energy to trigger EX special attack Crimson Vortex instead, which does even way more fire damage than her special attack that we talked about just a second ago. This is one of the key strengths to Orphie, as she's able to fulfill her role as a massive DPS contributor while having to take very little field time to do so. This is the type of character that the attack class has been missing for months, and because of her introduction, she'll be opening up quite a few different team comps for a few characters. That's exciting, but also kind of disappointing to me, because if you guys didn't know, I'm not really a huge fan of not being able to control or play my characters as much as I would like. You could forcibly bring Orphie on field a lot more often and use her basic attacks and such, but it's highly decentralized due to all of her main core damage and then how she synergizes with teams, requiring her to be played off field. This kind of sucks, but I do understand the value that it brings to the attack class, and it's actually pretty important to the point that it further improves the overall class at its core. So while I might not like this, Orphie being like this is very vital to the teams that she's going to be a part of. But I will say though, we do have opportunities where we are able to utilize her on field, and that's when her bottle heat is greater than or equal to 100. Once this threshold is met, Orphie can consume 100 BP to perform her EX special Heat Charge. This is a special attack that triggers Magus to unleash a laser that increases in firepower over time. This skill is extremely strong, as its increased firepower not only means in damage, but it also means an interrupt level, allowing the skill to stagger bosses at maximum power. The skill also has a parry attached to it when firing, and if enemies attack while it's active, the firepower will immediately increase while making Orphie and Magus invulnerable. This is insane, and it actually happens a lot more often than you think. This is honestly my favorite part about the character kit, because not only do I get to play her just a little bit, but you also get to really feel the firepower from this move when Magus erupts. I also forgot to mention that this move has a quick assist tied to it, which allows you to swap to your teammates and perform their role with Orphie and Magus remaining on field to do their thing. This is always a nice touch to add to any character's kit, because if it's anything that we've learned while playing Zenless this whole time, quick assist is king in a lot of situations. Now it's time to get to the main juicy part of Orphie's kit. We need to talk about her buff, Zeroed In. When Orphie and Magus hits an enemy with their EX special Heat Charge, their team will gain a buff known as Zeroed In that increases their attack by a base of 280, and if Orphie's energy is greater than or equal to 1.6, the attack will increase by an additional 20 for every 0.1 point of energy regen, up to a maximum of 700. This buff lasts for 12 seconds, but when an agent in the zeroed in state triggers an aftershock, they can extend the duration for themselves up to 20 seconds. These agents are also then granted a 25% defensive ignore on the aftershocks if she has a stun or support unit on her team to trigger her additional ability. This buff alone makes Orphie and Magus a very valuable, and I mean very valuable, unit to pull for. This is because this buff drastically improves the performance of aftershock units on their team, and even provides a solid buff for other units too. But these buffs are also directly applied to Orphie herself, granting them insane firepower for a unit that is designed to support their team. You stack this on top of the fact that in her core passive, they just directly grant themselves a 25% crit rate buff and an 85% aftershock damage buff, while initially starting with the 100 bottle heat in combat, and you end up with a unit that is truly pushing the attack class further and further based off this insane kit that she already has. When seeing all this about Orphie and Magus, I believe they are a unit that is truly trying to push the attack class. They are pretty similar to Seed in my opinion, where they are designed to try to answer the struggles that the class is facing, and I think they do a pretty good job at it, but more so for the niche of Aftershock. I think this is a good thing though, because Aftershock is potentially the future of the class, so she could be a unit that pays off even more down the line. But even if we only worry about the now, she has her Opal Squad family to work with her in order to fully show off their true potential. All in all though, Orphie is a pretty straightforward unit, as she does everything off field automatically, and the only time you ever need to bring her on field is to use her EX special attack, chain attack, and her ultimate. Because of this by far makes her the easiest attacker to pick up right now, but also in my opinion one of the most boring to use in the class due to you hardly ever having to play the character. But just because she's boring to me doesn't mean that you guys won't like this gameplay, and that doesn't mean that she's weak at all, because she's far from it. She's a very valuable unit that's worth the pickup, and I think a lot of you guys that have been waiting for her for a while now will be satisfied with her if you're fine with the off-field playstyle. She's super strong and further improves the Aftershock meta that I know quite a few of you have already invested into, which we do need to go over a bit more into detail when talking about her teams. But before we do that, I think it's important that we go over how to build Orphie properly first, and then we can segue into her teams a little bit later into the video. So when it comes to building Orphie, that is by far one of the easiest things to do with her, as there aren't too many set options that actually really work with her extremely well. For her 4-piece set, you either want to go for Shadow Harmony or Astral Voice. Shadow Harmony is her best personal damage set, as it grants her a 15% increase on her Aftershock damage with her 2-piece and up to a 12% increase in attack and crit rate when hitting enemies with her Aftershock 3 times on the 4-piece. Ideally, the whole point of this set is to increase her damage when she's performing her skills, and if paired with her weapon, it makes it pretty easy to build crit rate on her, allowing you to invest more into attack and crit damage. Astral Voice is used to provide her entire team a 24% attack increase when stacking quick assist on the 4-piece, and she provides herself a 10% increase into her attack. This set is nice when paired with a support, since you will be able to rock Astral Voice on Orphie and Moonlight Lullaby on a unit like Astra. This will overall grant the team a significant damage buff that will be easy to maintain and resulting in better DPS for the team, instead of just directly increasing Orphie's damage on her own. But again, this is only when you plan to run her with a unit like Astra, because it's much easier to keep up the Astral Voice buff that way. Finally, for her 2-piece set, you really only want to go for Swing Jazz or Moonlight Lullaby, since Orphie cares the most about getting her energy regen as high as her can for her zeroed in buff. When it comes to your slotted pieces though, I would suggest running crit damage, crit rate, or attack percent in the order on slot 4, depending on the substats and your weapon. If you're rocking Shadow Harmony and you have her weapon, crit damage is more than likely to go to, but if you're missing one or the other, crit rate will probably be the better route. Slot 5, you can run attack percent or 5%, depending on the team and content you're running. More often than not, I found myself running attack percent though, but either one works really well. And finally, for slot 6, it's only going to be energy regen, and this is because again we want to focus on maximizing her buff as much as we can, and energy regen is one of those pieces that's just not negotiable, because it provides such a substantial increase that we need in order to maintain a zeroed in buff. Now when it comes to W engines, in my opinion, the best thing you should focus on is energy regen for her buff again, like we mentioned before, but if not, focusing on her damage is the next best thing as well. So if possible, you can use her signature engine, which will be a nice pull because it grants you 60% energy regen, 20% crit rate, and 30% defense ignore. This engine is actually pretty insane. It does so much for her, so if you do plan to pull for Orphie and you have the extra pulls, I would definitely recommend going forward. But if you don't worry, you still have some pretty good alternative options as well. If you are an Evelyn lover and you ended up pulling her engine, you can use Heartstring Nocturne, as it's an amazing alternative that provides a 24% crit rate increase, 50% crit damage, and 20% fire res increase technically, but it's going to be pretty hard to consistently keep this up with Orphie outside of using it in stun windows. Kabuna Cannon is your next best engine as well, since you want to maximize getting energy regen as much as possible. And I know a lot of you guys will probably suggest Anton's engine, but more often than not, you guys probably haven't invested into his engine at all. But I know a lot of you probably have a Kabuna Cannon fully built somewhere on your account. And finally, Mercado Desire is a decent option that's mostly used to increase Orphie's personal damage. It gives a 20% crit rate increase and an increase to the user attack by 19.2%. Very subtle engine that you can use if you don't have any of the other ones previously above. But again, I would definitely suggest probably going for an ER engine, as it allows you to maximize the supportive capability of Orphie, which is one of the strongest aspects about her overall kit. But that's it in regards to building Orphie. This is a unit that's pretty straightforward in about every aspect aspect about her, and this further translate into her teams, which we're going to be talking about right now. When building teams for Orphie, you want to make sure that your units are able to take full advantage of her zeroed in buff. This means primarily she wants to be matched with at least one other Aftershock unit on her team if possible. Keeping this in mind, I would say that her best team right now is Sambi, Trigger, Orphie. This is because this team is fully kitted out with all 3 Aftershock units that are able to take full advantage of Orphie's overall buffs. We also have Sambi that's going to begin improvements within 2.3 pretty soon, which means this team is going to be probably Orphie's best in slot team overall. This is also the final piece to Sambi's full premium team, which makes her an amazing pickup for anybody that has overall been investing into Sambi for some time now. I've also already noticed that when using her paired with Orphie, the performance that Sambi is getting now is much better than she was before, and this is pre her buff, which means it's even going to be crazier once she gets those improvements. Does this potentially mean Sambi might be getting closer to T0? Maybe 0.5 at minimum? We'll have to see. But don't worry, if you are missing Trigger and you need some other alternatives, units like Jué and Poker can work on this team as well. Next up, you have C Trigger Orphie. This is a team that doesn't fully take advantage of Orphie's buffs due to C not having any Aftershocks at all, but C is able to grant a buff themselves to Orphie, which overall increase the team's DPS in general. This is a great team for Orphie and probably the second best team that you can pair her with. When testing this is one of the main teams that I'm going to be looking into, and I found that the performance was actually pretty good. Now, it's not as a substantial increase as it is for Sambi and Orphie, but it is a really valuable increase that if you are looking for a unit that pairs pretty well with C right now, Orphie is definitely a worthwhile unit to go for. She just makes the overall team rotation and synergy work a lot better, since Seed is a unit that does prioritize field time quite a bit, so having a unit that's able to perform that job while just being off field and doing it on their own makes Seed life and this overall team's rotation so much better and a lot more comfortable. And then we have the options that are not exactly keen to what a lot of people are probably going to be using, but if you do just want a big Orphie and you want to find out some really good options you can go for, you can use Soldier 11 Lighter Orphie or Evelyn Lighter Orphie. This is a team that is designed to have 2 DPSs on their team, but they aren't utilizing any of the extra benefits from zeroed in when it comes to dealing extra damage through Aftershocks. Only Orphie is taking advantage of that, but that's fine because the idea is that we're going to be using a Lighter to amplify the performance of both fire DPSs on the team, being able to make up for that lack of extra damage that we would be getting from other Aftershock units. This team actually ended up working out pretty well, and it's probably going to be one of the other new main teams we're going to be running with Soldier 11 and Evelyn, because it's just a lot of fun. It's not what you naturally would go for in any other team with them, and it's not like their new best team at all, but it's a team that's strong enough and pretty much holds its own in in-game content that I think it'll be worthwhile using if you end up pulling Orphie and just want to try it out. Again, but if you guys don't have Lighter here, you can substitute for Jué and Poker, but I will say that the performance does drop down quite a bit in comparison to running Lighter overall. Soldier and Evelyn can also technically be substituted here, as you can use this team with units like Ellen, Neko, and Billy, but if you're going to use Billy and Neko, you would definitely rather use Jué and Poker on this team overall. But other than that, that is all the teams for Orphie. She doesn't have a big wide roster of characters to use because overall her gimmick is pretty niche with Aftershock as a whole, but the teams that she do have will be considered pretty strong and will probably place her pretty high within the current meta of Zenless. I believe Orphie is one of the final pieces that attack needs in order to elevate the class much further, and it's probably a true reigning example of how they're going to be pushing the attack class further into the future. I think Aftershocks are a lot stronger now, and it's something that's worth investing into if you want to finally check it out. But if you haven't been investing to it already, it's probably going to be pretty expensive down the line to get all of these pieces currently right now, which has me hoping that maybe we'll see more Aftershock units in the future, but only time will tell. But currently, as of right now, with everything that we have about Orphie and all the current teammates that she has available in the game, she does have quite a few options that are very worthwhile pulling for, and they do perform pretty well within in-game content that I think most of you will be overall satisfied with her performance, whether it be her premium options or her free-to-play. But yeah, that's everything that we have on teams, and I think now it's finally time to talk about this character's overall pull value. If you're going to be going for Orphie and you're kind of hesitating on if you should pull her, I would say the only reason you should be going for this character if you're somebody that has already been invested in Aftershock, which also means that you're already directly invested into Oball Squad, or if you're someone that just really loves the character. This is because this is a unit that is designed to push a specific niche, which means you should be already invested into this niche or plan to invest into it within these next couple of patches to catch yourself up now that Orphie is here. I say this because outside Outside of that, trying to squeeze Orphie in any other team comps currently right now looks like it's going to be quite a bit of a struggle if you don't have some other form of Aftershock unit on your team. She's a unit that does perform pretty well by herself and is a pretty strong attacker, but that is not fully what her kit is designed to do, as she's a unit that is supposed to attack and support her team. So you want to be able to have a team that's able to complement both sides of her kit overall, which overall means that, in my opinion, Orphie is not a must-pull unit. She's just a good option that you can go for if you want to fully further invest into a niche meta that some of us have already been looking into. You guys already know I'm an O-Ball squad guy, so I'm automatically going to be pulling for Orphie because I need to complete the full O-Ball squad team. But if you're somebody that hasn't yet and overall doesn't really care to go for the rest of the other O-Ball squad members, I would say you can probably better invest your currency into future units coming down the line, like within 2.3, which will be the future Rupture meta coming pretty soon. But overall, that doesn't mean that Orphie is a bad unit. She is a strong unit and she will be very valuable to the people that pull for her and have the Aftershock investment. Again, she's just very niche and requires a bit more commitment if you want to overall utilize her in the grand scheme of things. I know some people probably want to push the idea of trying to make her play by herself, like be your main DPS. Honestly, I didn't get too much time to test that out, so I don't know the true strength and value into that. But maybe some other content creators can point you guys in that direction and better showcase how Orphie is on her own if you want her to be your main DPS. But that's everything that I have for today's video. Let me know in the comment section below if you guys plan to get Orphie and if this overall video was pretty much helpful. This is a character that I think looks pretty good and is overall strong, but even though she doesn't offer a gameplay that I overall enjoy, she's a unit that I will be ending up picking up still and will be implementing a part of my core teams, because when she's paired with other units that utilize Aftershock, she makes the team so much smoother and a lot more fun that it's just a worthwhile investment overall. But I appreciate you guys and all your love and support. Remember to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, and always remember to believe in you that believes in yourself. I'll see you guys in the next one.